Once upon a time, Toronto set out on a search for a Major League Baseball team. In 1976, the city got its wish, and within 10 years would succeed in a mission impossible. Years of Blue Jays baseball. Mission impossible.
Good morning, Mr. Gillick. The year is 1976, and your mission is the overthrow of a sinister group headed by the New York Yankees. The force known as the American League East also contains the Detroit Tigers, a team of menacing sluggers. Next, the Baltimore Orioles are well-armed and therefore dangerous, while the Cleveland Indians harbor an army of assassins in their bullpen. Also, look out for the power-laden Boston Red Sox, who will stop at nothing to wipe out enemy pitching. Lastly, you must dispose of the crafty Milwaukee Brewers. Should you decide to accept this mission, we will disavow any knowledge of your actions. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck.
It seemed like a mission impossible 10 years ago when the city of Toronto was trying to secure a Major League Baseball team. Efforts actually began long before then. And for a while, it looked as though Toronto would rise to the majors as the National League Toronto Giants.
Toronto has been negotiating more than a year for a National League Baseball franchise, both as a tourist attraction and to stay in competition with Montreal. This afternoon, civic officials announced that the owners of the San Francisco Giants had agreed to sell their club to a Toronto group led by Labatt's Breweries, subject only to approval by the league directors. If that approval is obtained, and no one sees why it should not be, then the Toronto Giants could be on the field by next April.
The first day that Mayor Moscone took office, he applied for and received a court injunction, and that successfully blocked that whole initiative.
Though that effort failed, both leagues sought expansion into Toronto. Finally, the American League succeeded, and the Blue Jays were born, a most welcome addition to the city of Toronto. A site was chosen for the new team, but the first taste of Major League Baseball came in Dunedin, Florida, where Toronto opened its first spring training in 1977. Just born and full of uncertainty.
Good morning, men. I want to welcome all of you to sunny Florida and the Toronto Blue Jays. It's kind of nice to have a full house. For the one and only time in the history of the Toronto club, every position out there is open.
While Hartsfield was holding open auditions on the field, the team was filling key positions in the front office. Peter Bavasi left his father's San Diego Padres to become Toronto's vice president, while Pat Gillick became chief architect and master planner in his post as head of player personnel. As for Roy Hartsfield, he stepped into his job at age 51, ripe for the challenge of fielding a team that maybe wasn't quite ready for the majors. The city, meanwhile, was more than ready to welcome the Blue Jays, giving them a parade even before their first game. The greeting was an indication of the passionate support the team would later enjoy. But it was nothing like the turnout on April 7, 1977, when more than 44,000 braved sub-zero temperatures and snow flurries to witness the Blue Jays' very first home opener, which was played against the White Sox. Despite uncooperative weather, there was no way anyone was going to stop this show. And what entertainment it turned out to be. Through 10 years of Blue Jays baseball, this game will be forever etched in the hearts and minds of Toronto fans.
Here it is, the first pitch in Blue Jay history. It's a swing for the fastball.
Once the game got started, I'm freezing. I'm just asking myself, how am I going to even hold a bat? Let's swing it. The first hitter went up and struck out, and that's when I heard my first boos. And I don't mean there were a few people booing. Everybody was booing. You know, everybody wanted to see us do good. Well, the second hitter, you know, got up, and he struck out too. And the boos really got loud, and I'm on deck thinking, my gosh, I'm next, you know. They're booing, they're wanting a hit, they're wanting something to happen. And so I step up to the plate, and the first pitch I take for a strike. And then they really start booing. I mean, you know, they're thinking, oh, 3 strikeouts in a row. I'm thinking, oh, I got to swing the bat. You know, I got to do something. Well, the next pitch I hit for a home run. And I've never seen the mood of any fans change like it did at that time, from boos to just total cheering.
Brett deals, hard hit ball, power alley, left center field. Home run! Dug up. It's the first homer in Blue Jay history and will score the first run.
And all didn't stop there. He hit another home run at the inaugural and promptly became the Blue Jays' first matinee idol. Yet, as it turned out, becoming an instant celebrity wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
A dealership wanted to give me a car. I said, well, fine, you know, to use for the season. Great, 280Z. Great. Little did I know they plastered my name, or the Blue Jays, on the side of it. Well, I couldn't go anywhere. Naturally, then, you know. That was the biggest mistake I've ever made in baseball.
Behind Alt's 2 dramatic home runs and the decisive blast by Al Woods, the Blue Jays won their first ever Major League game. And with the 9-5 win, stormed into a brave new world, proudly declaring their berth in the majors. After the first homestand, the Blue Jays got a taste of first place. But success proved ever so fleeting, for it would take 6 more years before Toronto would lead the East Division pack again. For now, competition in baseball's toughest division was catching up with Toronto, and growing pains were causing the Blue Jays a bad case of expansion blues.
I'd see Roy after a ball game or on an airplane someplace just sort of staring off into nowhere with a cold beer in his hand saying, can anybody play this game anymore? Can anybody play this game?
Perhaps the only consolation was that the expansion Blue Jays really weren't expected to suddenly achieve respectability and win on a consistent basis.
We were supposed to go 0-162 from what everybody wrote and from what we read about it. So every time we won a game, it was like we won a playoff game because we weren't supposed to win any. And that's what kept us going. 30 games out of first place at the All-Star break or whatever it may have been, but every time we won a game, it was a feather in our hat, and that's all we had to shoot for at the time.
As it turned out, the Blue Jays ended up losing 107 games in their first season. But bad as it seemed, all was not lost. The steady performances of such early bright spots as Bob Baylor helped lift Toronto's spirits. Fulfilling his promise as an aggressive and feisty shortstop, Bob hit .310 that first season, the highest average of any rookie in the majors. What's more, with his versatility, Baylor showed up here, there, and everywhere, sometimes in the most unexpected of places. Roy Howell also fulfilled early Blue Jay expectations. The scrappy third baseman hit over 300 in his first season and continued his exploits in 1978 when he was named Labatt's Player of the Year. As the team's first All-Star, veteran Ron Fairley brought impressive credentials to his new job, becoming the Blue Jays' first home run and RBI leader. But despite the luster of a few, hazardous conditions prevail, worst of all at home alongside Lake Ontario.
We had one game in Toronto that involved fog, and we were beating Milwaukee, and we were up by about 4 runs in that game, and I was playing right field, and I could see the pitcher wind up, but I couldn't see the ball go from the mound to the plate, let alone the hitter swing the bat and make contact and see where the ball was going to go. So I called timeout, and I came in to the infield, and Hartsfield came out to me, and he says, "What's wrong, Ron?" I said, "Hartsy, I can't see the ball." He says, "So what? We have a 4-run lead. Just do the best you can." And sure enough, as things would have it, there was a ball hit into right field, and I came in a few steps. I didn't see the ball. If I would have stayed in the same spot, it might have hit me right in the head, because I didn't see that ball at all. And we eventually went on to win that ball game.
Even though the Blue Jays struggled, their fans kept the faith right from the start, when despite a 7th-place finish, over 1.5 million turned out.
I think that we were very fortunate is the fact that we have fans in Toronto that had the patience of Job, and they stayed with us, and they never hollered or demanded that we make changes and let us go along with the course that we had laid out. And this is why I think we were able to build the organization that we did. It was mainly because the people in Toronto were very, very patient in that regard.
They loved us. They didn't care if we lost every game. I don't think they started booing until about the 3rd or 4th year. They learned to boo then. They fully grasped the game then, because I know a lot of us rubbed snuff at the time, and they couldn't understand why a baseball player was carrying around a hockey puck in his back pocket.
The fans were learning, and so were the Blue Jays, who entered their 2nd season with a new cast of players. Only problem being, their story was the same old struggle for respectability.
We knew going into our 2nd season it's going to be almost like it was in the 1st season, maybe with a little improvement. We felt if we had some improvement, we would be going in the right direction, and I think we did.
Thanks in part to bright spots like center fielder Rick Bossetti, an early favorite in Toronto. Also, Dave Lemancic, who was the ace of a young pitching staff. As for the offense, John Mayberry and Rico Carty helped gain respect, even if the Blue Jays were a long way from earning their wings.
No one in baseball would give you anything then. No one in baseball will give you anything today. You got to go earn it. And that's the way the game is. That's the way it should be. I don't want anyone giving me anything. I'll earn it.
Earning respect still seemed an impossible mission for the Blue Jays, who lost 318 games in their first 3 seasons. But while the numbers were a constant source of frustration, the young club was making progress and showing signs of turning the tide.
We were constantly trying to improve. The minute you quit trying to improve, then you're going the opposite way. You just got to fight and scrap and hold your breath and be patient and dig and anything else that you can do in order to try to come up with a winning ball club.
Although the Blue Jays would not achieve success on the field until 1985, the building of their championship team actually began years earlier, when they signed 5 recruits whose names may have been unknown then, but would later become integral members of the Blue Jays as the central characters in Toronto's success story. Having selected Toronto's future stars, Pat Gillick then chose the man to manage them. A proven judge of talent, Bobby Maddock was the perfect choice. He had been scouting supervisor for the Blue Jays since the team's beginning, and now as manager, he was working with the very players he had developed in the minors.
Bobby knew his players right from the schoolyards where he first saw them, and I think really phase 2 around here was Bobby Maddock just continuing the education of some of those young ball players that he sort of milk-fed into the big leagues.
Dave Steve was a member of that new Blue Jay, born and raised in the organization. He had been signed by Maddock and now in the majors became a beneficiary of Bobby's patient instruction.
If Steve was having a bad inning or say he got in the jam in the 5th inning, I wouldn't want to pull him for somebody else just to try to make things happen. I want him to get that experience and get out of a jam if he could, and know and really retain that he can get out of jams when he gets in them.
Lloyd Mosby was another recruit designed for grooming in the Blue Jay farm system. But in 1980, at the age of 20, he was pushed into Major League service. So Mosby spent much of his education in the majors, which as it turned out was the place to be if Bobby Maddock was the teacher.
Here's a guy who had me sliding, doing sliding drills. It's kind of hard to describe. He would have a ball in his hand and I'd come sliding from out of nowhere under a ball and catching it, especially on AstroTurf. I'm not going to dive head first, but I think that the slide that he taught me in those days have really made a definite impact on my outfield play.
Bolstered by Maddock's confidence, the Blue Jays upped their win total to a club record 67. The improvement was due in large measure to the slick stick of John Mayberry, the Blue Jays' principal slugger since joining the team 3 seasons earlier. In 1980, Big John hit 30 home runs to set a then club mark. Another big man on Toronto's campus was Al Woods, who smacked 15 homers. Add to that 20 home runs by Otto the Swallow Velez, who'd been a Blue Jay hero since April 1977, when he became the first Blue Jay to ever win the league's Player of the Month award. Despite the pumped-up offense, the Blue Jays still stumbled along in the East Division. By the end of the season, most of the key players from the early years would be gone in favor of the youngsters. And as the old guard departed, the new flock found out that life in the majors was a complicated business.
Hey, complications, complications going down, complications in your lifetime, complications all around him. Them old complications, complications in the wind, complications where you're bound for, and it's complications where you've been. You know it is.
While hard times beset the Blue Jays, frustration gripped Bobby Maddock time and again.
We're having a rough time, and we had a rough time with the home plate umpire. You know, we couldn't get any strikes, or when we were at the plate, you know, it seemed like everything that the other team was throwing at us was a strike. And when our pitcher was out there, everything was a ball. So finally, Bobby Maddock, our manager at the time, he was just frustrated as could be because he really wanted to do well in Baltimore. So we have a close play at home plate. The umpire calls him out at home plate. Maddock throws up his hat, but his hat didn't come down. He was expecting to come down. He's looking around like this for the hat. And what happened? It landed on top of a dugout.
Not all of Maddock's 2 years on the field proved embarrassing. In fact, under his steady guidance, the Blue Jays finally began to gain respect around the league, even in New York, where they proved to be a worthy opponent over the years.
I remember Dick Hauser coming up to me at the batting cage, Yankee Stadium. He says, "You guys are playing us as tough as anyone." Well, I thought that was real classy of that guy, because we didn't beat him, but we did play him tough.
Even so, the Blue Jays were scampering for help in early '81 when they were hitting a dreadful .218 and lost 42 of their first 58 games. Nothing epitomized the frustration more than May 15th, when Cleveland's Len Barker disposed of the Blue Jays in record fashion. Not one batter reached base for 8 2/3 when Barker stood 1 out away from a perfect game.
Bobby Maddock got on the phone to the bullpen and called down for me to come down and pinch hit. And I yelled to Felsky, I says, "Don't answer the phone." I says, "I don't want to go up there and hit now. I don't want to be in the record books." I went up there and, you know, maybe tried to break his concentration by pointing to the center field fence like I was going to hit one out. But I didn't do it. I popped up the center field.
A masterpiece for Barker, but an all-time low for the Blue Jays.
We made 3 outs quicker and easier than any club I've ever seen, minor league or big league. We just couldn't score a run. Well, I was kind of hoping for the strike, I'll tell you.
With the strike came a turning point for the Blue Jays. When the season started up again, after a 59-day layoff, Toronto was a different ball club. The Blue Jays played .500 ball until the last 2 weeks of the season. Juggling new talent into the lineup, Pat Gillick plucked a pair of aces from his minor league deck. George Bell was summoned, along with outfielder Jesse Barfield. Jesse's Major League debut was a smash. At hometown Comiskey Park in September, he drove in 6 runs in 4 games, a performance which proved to be a preview of things to come. George Bell also graduated to the Blue Jays at the age of 21. He had been drafted from the Phillies and despite injuries the year before, was making a persuasive argument for sticking with the team. As for the Blue Jays, they stuck fast to their plans, and by the end of 1981, could finally feel proud of themselves. The future stars were beginning to click even though winning may have still seemed like a distant goal. But the talent and know-how were there, thanks in large part to the Blue Jays' foremost instructor.
Bobby Maddock, to me, was a genius in fundamentals of the game. There's no doubt about it. He took those young players up when he was managing, knowing that he was going to lose. But he took them up and he worked them out in the fundamentals of baseball. He put them in there, let them play every day, knowing they were going to struggle. Tried to keep them up, keep their hopes up, keep them going. And therefore, by Bobby Maddock's suffering, Toronto gained.
The Blue Jays' greatest gain has come from their farm system, which has continually provided Toronto with its principal source of talent and given creator Pat Gillick just what he needs to carry out his master plan.
We're always trying to project who we have in the organization, what our needs are, how we're going to fulfill those needs, and how we're going to do this not only on a short range but a long range basis. But I like to think 4 and 5 years down the road, and that's why in my particular case I spent a lot of time in the minor leagues looking at the players that we have at the Class A and the rookie level, and hopefully project those players to where they'll be 4 and 5 years from now.
He is a great believer in producing from the inside to the maximum that one can. He's a good selector of talent, a young talent, and I think Pat manages the timing of it in a very able way, in a very professional way.
Down on the farm, in Toronto's case, doesn't mean only the minor leagues in North America. The Blue Jays' talent search extends into the Dominican Republic, where Chief Latin scout Epi Guerrero continues to keep the majors well stocked.
All what I know is scouting, and all what I learned about baseball scouting is because Pat Gillick. Pat Gillick showed me all the little trick, how to scout, loosen arm, legs, when one guy gonna be hitting, the hand moving, every little trick Pat Gillick showed me to me, so from there my eyes been working very good.
He's been able to bring together, which is this key component of his organization, he gets no credit for, is the off-the-field people that you don't see. The minor league personnel, the people that do the scouting, the people that do the developing, and he's been able to do it across North America. I mean, he was smart enough to know, hey, look, let's go down to the Dominican, and let's get a toehold in there so that when this whole area explodes, you know, we've got a base of which to work from.
With the farm systems providing the players, Pat Gillick continued on his mission by hiring former Braves manager Bobby Cox in 1982. An earnest and dedicated leader, Cox inherited a team whose nucleus was in place, and he infused his players with a whole new attitude.
When he took over, he wasn't talking about winning 60 games or playing 500. You know, he was talking about winning it.
His intensity was so evident during the course of 9 innings of a ball game. He had one thing on his mind, and that was winning a baseball game. It didn't matter how you did it. It didn't matter who did it for you. We just had to win.
With this newfound philosophy, the Blue Jays left the cellar behind for the first time. A change of residence attributed largely to Bobby Cox's platoon system. No one could argue with the policy that encouraged full employment while putting the Blue Jays on the threshold of prosperity.
I don't think we had any so-called superstars in 1982 at all, but they were willing to set out a few games if it meant winning a ball game or whatever, and they knew they'd be in a ball game that particular day. Probably at some point in that ball game they were going to get in and help us win.
Cliff Johnson joined the Blue Jays in 1983, and as their right-handed DH helped raise Toronto's DH platoon from the least to the most productive in the league. From the left side, George Orta proved a fitting complement, and together they posted 32 homers and 114 RBIs. The Blue Jays platoon was fast becoming the latest and greatest invention to hit Toronto. The team's once drab picture had taken on a fresh look, and the new rage caught on with everyone, especially Rance Mullinax, who was a hands-down favorite as the left-handed platoon at third base. Joining the Blue Jays in '82, Rance responded to the steady work with steadily improving numbers, including a team-best .324 average in '84. Garth Iorg teamed up with Rance at the hot corner, and since joining forces in 1982, Garth has provided consistent numbers while helping create stability in the infield. Along with Garth, Ernie Witt has been a Blue Jay since the team's formation 10 years ago. He was almost cut in that first spring training, but has since become a favorite in Toronto, where he's been sharing the ground around home plate since 1982. While his glove may be an asset, his bat's a must. And since platooning, Ernie has averaged 15 home runs a year.
Witt hits it out into right center field. It's going back. It's out of here. A home run for Ernie Witt.
In striking the proper balance behind the plate, Buck Martinez consistently provided steady leadership over the years. Although Bobby platooned freely, he refrained from using the two-party system at first base, where John Mayberry had been sole proprietor for 4 years, but then gave way to an up-and-coming star. Willie Upshaw was being groomed for the takeover, and in 1982, the Blue Jays felt he was ready.
He won the job from John Mayberry. He had such a great spring that we all felt when we had our organizational meetings that Willie should be given a chance to play. And after watching him play of the spring of '82, I thought it was a great idea, too, because he had great range at first base, probably as much as anybody in the American League. And not only was he a good hitter at that time, but he could go get the ball.
I remember calling John Mayberry the night that Willie Upshaw became our first 100 RBI man with this organization. And I can remember Big John saying, I knew it was just a matter of time before one of the young bloods did it. And I'm so happy that it was Willie, because Willie was his special project.
As the new heir, Upshaw responded to his role by leading the club with 21 homers and 75 RBIs. Sweet numbers for the 25-year-old who proved he was fit to the task.
There's a drive into right field. That one's out of here.
While Upshaw was striking fear into the opposition, the Blue Jay offense was striking up a new order. Toronto scored more runs and hit more homers than ever before. Yet as the club's commitment to its farm system was beginning to reap rewards, the road to success was still a rocky one.
I was struggling real bad one stretch, and it was rumored that I was going to be sent to AAA. And Bobby Cox said at the time, no, he's going to stay and he's going to play. And that really meant a lot to me because it took a little pressure off myself and knowing that they were going to stick with me at the time. And I went on to have a pretty decent second half. I ended up hitting 18 home runs my rookie season, and that was a big confidence builder for me as well.
Lloyd Mosby's confidence needed a lift in 1982. He was in his third season, but still looking to hit .240. As it turned out, Shaker blossomed the next year and went on to have a huge impact on the team, as did Alfredo Griffin, who was also schooled in the majors, where he became Toronto's Iron Man and its guiding force. Damaso Garcia was another young Blue Jay making great strides. His far-reaching talents at second base gave batters heartache and helped give the Blue Jays a dependable double-play combination, Dominican style. In 1982, Damo had his best season with 54 steals and a .310 average, and as Labatt's Player of the Year was a prime mover as the Blue Jays were about to shake, rattle, and roll. As those words became a popular refrain in Toronto, the Blue Jays' four-man pitching outfit was rapidly becoming the talk of the league in 1982. Dave Stieb was the ace of the staff with 17 wins, while emerging as one of the game's top pitchers. Also sounding the fury of opposing batters was Luis Leal, a 12-game winner. Promising performances came from rookie Jim Gott. And in the midst of his best season, Jim Clancy was named to the All-Star squad, but saved his finest moment for September 28th against visiting Minnesota, when he retired 24 straight batters en route to a perfect game and immortality. But 3 outs away from perfection, Clancy failed to complete the picture.
Randy Bush was the leadoff hitter, and he hit a broken bat blooper over Garcia's head at second base, and it was just like everybody took the wind out of our sails, because the way he was throwing, there was no way they were going to get a hit off him.
I almost cried right there. You know, you go so far in your career or whatever, and even in the game, and then it happens.
I was disappointed. I had tears in my eyes at the end of the game, because I felt he pitched well enough to have a perfect game. And I can remember walking back to the bench and throwing my mask down on the ground and being disappointed, because I thought he deserved to pitch a perfect game.
The 1-1 swung on ground ball. Garcia backhands it, goes to Griffin, the force out at second. The ball game is over, and Jim Clancy has thrown a one-hitter. Shades of glory for both Clancy and the Blue Jays, who finally said goodbye to last place. So when spring training opened in 1983, the shadows of past failures gave way to fresh hope as the Blue Jays mounted their first real run at the East.
83 was the pivotal year in this organization, in my mind. That was the year that you said, aha, we've got some young guys can put numbers on the board here. We've got some guys who can play some defense. We got some good frontline starting pitching. What we need is some bullpen help.
Well, I think in '83, the players themselves started to realize, hey, you know, we might win this thing sometime.
Let's go, Blue Jays! Let's go! Let's go, Blue Jays! Let's go!
There's a belt, deep left center field. Forget about it. It's a home run for Cliff Johnson.
Struck him out! He struck him out!
Big hop to Barfield. He's got that good arm.
Oh, look at this, folks. What a throw.
Got him. A great throw by Barfield. The inning is over.
The sounds of victory struck new chords in Toronto, and before anyone knew what was happening, the Blue Jays' early season magic had turned the town on its heels. Toronto's blue skies opened as the Jays gave every indication that a new era had arrived. Not only would they go on to compile the league's highest batting average, most extra base hits, and second most home runs, but the Blue Jays would get a taste of their first real pennant race. The team had aroused the league with a strong finish the year before and was now carrying that momentum along. Sparking the Blue Jays' surge was newcomer Dave Collins, who shared outfield service with Barry Bonnell, the team's leading hitter at .318. By late May, Toronto had proved to be a real contender, and after shutting out the Tigers in 3 straight games, the Blue Jays were on the threshold of first place. They are standing! Everybody is standing!
Struck him out! He struck him out! He struck him out swinging, and that's a winner!
It was the best of times for both the Blue Jays and their prized pitcher, Dave Steve, whose outstanding exploits were making him a glamorous attraction in Toronto. At age 26, Steve now ranked among the league's premier pitchers, an enviable position for the one-time Southern Illinois outfielder who didn't turn full-time pitcher until 4 years earlier. Now, in 1983, Dave won 17 games for the second straight season, while ranking 3rd in the league in ERA and strikeouts. Opposing batters could only wince at his formidable slider.
The slider, you know, it looks like a fastball, and then it just breaks down into away from right-handed hitters. It's a sharp breaking ball. A successful slider can be in the strike zone if it's got good break on it, but the best one is the one that doesn't end up in the strike zone.
Dave had full command of the slider in 1983 and held opponents to a .219 average against him.
When you ask opposing hitters around the league what you think of Dave Steve, they don't want any part of him. He had the best slider in the league. He could throw the ball over 93 miles an hour, and he pitched in a lot of tough luck.
Tough luck maybe, but the greatest misfortune came to American League batters who found themselves at the mercy of Toronto's top gun. But while Dave was blowing down opponents, the troubled bullpen was blowing all kinds of save chances. And what magic the Blue Jays had mustered early on turned sour, most tragically in Baltimore.
The Baltimore series really kind of told us that, boys, you're going to have to wait till next year. In the one game, we had 3 runners picked off of first base in the same inning. Barry Bonnell was the runner, and he just couldn't wait to get to second base because he knew he could steal with Lenny Sakata behind the plate. But the pitcher was Tippy Martinez, and he picked him off for the first out. The second runner got on, I believe it was Dave Collins. John Sullivan was the first base coach, and he walked over and he says, listen, you got 1 out. Now don't get picked off. And he didn't get those words out of his mouth, and Tippy had picked off Collins for the second out. And then Willie Upshaw got on, so we still had a rally going, and I'm the batter, and Sully walks over again and says, okay, now you got 2 outs. You can't get picked off now. And sure enough, he threw one over to first base and picked off Willie for 3 in a row, and that pretty much set the tone for the rest of our season.
In 1984, the tone shifted dramatically. Frustration turned to elation as the Blue Jays got off to a great start and kept up their wave of prosperity through most of the season, pulling out 1-run victories time and again. Swung on line into right field. That's going to win the ball game. Here comes Barfield, and this one is over. The Blue Jays have swept the Kansas City Royals. Near the end of May, the Blue Jays were 13 games above 500, with the second-best record in baseball. But just when Toronto finally arrived as a contender in the American League East, baseball's attention was turned to Detroit. The Tigers had won 35 of their first 40 games to run away from the rest of the pack. Everyone, that is, except the Blue Jays, who had pulled within striking distance when they arrived at Tiger Stadium for an early June showdown. But this was Detroit's year, and no one epitomized the Tigers' tenacity more than Dave Bergman in the 10th inning of Game 1.
He fought so many pitches off. I think he might have fought 15 pitches off. It was unbelievable. It was a dramatic series. It was a series that I never forget because it was like the playoffs or World Series in a regular season. And when that ball left and went out of the ballpark, I think about 3 or 4 guys cried that night. It wasn't from losing a ball game because, you know, in 162 ball games, you're going to lose some. Everybody know that. That's not the point. But we were so mentally and so spiritually into the ball game is that we were let down so bad. But it only comes to shows how good of a ball club that we really got because we kept coming back and back and back, and we finally got it within 3.5 ball games. And they went on to take the American League East, but we gave them a run for their money.
The Blue Jays ended that season in second place, 16 games over 500, with the same record as the year before. But again, the bullpen collapsed down the stretch, leaving Toronto in search of one last ingredient.
One of the needs that we had at that time, I suppose, was a good bullpen ace, and we just simply did not have that out there, and we were trying to piece it together. And we lost a number of games. I can recall in a 2-week span, I think we lost 9 games in the 9th inning because we would always give up the winning run in those innings.
So in a mad dash to solve their most pressing problem in 1985, the Blue Jays acquired veteran reliever Bill Cottle, who had saved 88 games in 3 seasons and would team up in the pen with left-hander Gary Lavelle. But as it happened, neither big-name attraction panned out. Instead, Dennis Lamp turned savior after a troublesome 84 season. He moved into the role of middle reliever and posted a perfect 11-0 mark. Rising to the role of stopper in the second half, Tom Henke proved the biggest surprise when called up from AAA at the end of July.
He had great ratings out of Syracuse. He very seldom ever gave up a base hit. And he had a lot more strikeouts and innings pitched and a lot less hits than innings pitched. And we had to start winning some more ball games. And I think that was the best thing for Tommy. Get right in there with the big boys, get them out, and his confidence zoomed up.
Zipping through American League batters with 13 saves and 15 chances, Henke became better known as the Terminator, while the bullpen became known as the best in the league, a claim previously unthinkable. Left-hander Jimmy Key had been a reliever in '84, but was shifted into the rotation in what proved to be a key move.
The '85, we had to make a strong effort to get him in the rotation. Everybody could see that he should be a starter, and his control was great. Al Widmar gave him a sinker. I don't remember Jimmy with a sinker when he first came up in '84, but boy, when that '85 season started, that sinker was devastating to the opposition. He threw strikes, he threw a lot of ground balls, and he was a gutty kid. And you talk about maturity, he did it all in 1 year.
What Key did was post a 14-6 record and the third best ERA in the league. And despite being just 24, he showed himself to be a cool and collected pitcher in critical games. Doyle Alexander led the Blue Jays with 17 wins, giving him 41 victories in 2.5 seasons with Toronto. So with the pitching well in hand, Toronto was alive and well for the drive of '85, ready to take on an improbable mission and bowl over the East Division. In doing so, the Blue Jays were forced to part with Alfredo Griffin, perhaps Toronto's most beloved and respected player. But the minor league exploits of Tony Fernandez demanded his promotion to Toronto on a full-time basis. At Syracuse, Tony was twice named the league's all-star shortstop. And by 1985, it was clear he could not stay on the farm any longer.
We knew, though, beginning the '85 season that we were going to play Tony Fernandez on a regular basis, and Alfredo had been with us and been one of our most loyal players. And Alfredo, be it winter, summer, he just wants to play baseball, and we knew that he would be very, very miserable in a backup role here because we wanted to put Tony in the lineup.
To me, Alfredo was part of this organization. You know, he was part of success over here. I would say, you know, in 3 or 4, you know, decades, you know, from now, you talk about Toronto Blue Jays, Alfredo Griffin, you know, names have to be on top, you know, because he was an era, I would say, for this club.
In the Dominican Republic in San Pedro de Macorís, the shortstop factory in the Dominican, I think everybody's heard about that by now. Tony Fernandez used to jump over the fence at a little field in San Pedro, and there are baseball fields all around those little sugar mill towns, Consuelo and San Pedro and stuff. And Tony Fernandez was said to have mentioned to Alfredo Griffin. Alfredo would throw him the glove, give him shoes to play with, and Tony would come out in shorts, and Tony was supposed to have said, "Someday I'm going to take your job, Alfredo." Well, Tony was talking about taking his job on the local San Pedro de Macorís team. As it turned out, Tony took the job of Alfredo with the Toronto Blue Jays on a major league level.
And once he did, Tony was everything the Blue Jays hoped for. In becoming the team's new Iron Man, he proved to be a fluid shortstop with outstanding range. But beyond the glove work, Tony showed a real flair for offense, and in '86 compiled 213 hits, most of any major league shortstop in one season ever.
We all knew about the fluid moves. We knew about the glove. We knew that he was maybe going to be the best shortstop defensively in this game someday, and someday is approaching very, very rapidly. I don't think anybody expected him to be the hitter that he's going to be. Tony's a 300 hitter and probably will be in his big league career, a 300 hitter in Major League Baseball.
Tony might be the best shortstop in baseball all around. I mean, I know you look at Augie Smith over there. He's got some kind of glove, but Tony can do it all. And I think Tony one of these days will probably be your third place hitter. I think he probably hit 15 home runs one of these days.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Don't you fight it till you try to do that conga.
Blushing with promise, Tony helped spark the Blue Jays on their first sustained pennant drive, an event that brought sweet melodies to Toronto.
Swung on, belted, deep left field, might be, it is on the roof. George Bell has done it again. A swing and a fly ball, deep right field. This ball game is over.
Toward the end of May, the Blue Jays charged into first place, a position they held tenaciously for the rest of the season. No Blue Jay better demonstrated the team's resolve than Buck Martinez in a game against Seattle in early July.
3-2 pitch again to Gorman, swung on, ground ball to the right side, base hit out into right field. Here comes Bradley, rounding third, the throw by Barfield, and it's going to be in time. The collision, Bradley bowls Martinez over. Thomas will wind up on the third base, rounding third. The throw gets by Orts, throw to the plate, and it is in time to get Gorman. Holy smoke, Buck Martinez bowled over.
The result, 2 putouts and a broken leg for Buck, all on the same play at the plate. A play which exemplified Toronto's spirit and helped fortify the Blue Jays for an early September showdown in New York, where the oncoming Yankees were all set to oust the Blue Jays from the catbird seat. In Game 1, the panicky Blue Jays allowed New York 6 unearned runs, the last 3 on Ron Hassey's game-winning homer. The Blue Jays lost the opener, and their lead dwindled, but they refused to fall from grace.
We like to be pushed. You know, we can play in front of 200,000, fan, and we're going to do better. That's what happened in Yankee Stadium. When those guys cheer the Yankee, they push us.
The Yankees pushed, but Toronto protested heartily. With the pressure on high, the feisty Blue Jays recovered from their series opening loss, slid back into form, and cracked 36 hits in the next 3 games, sweeping all 3 and reducing Yankee pennant hopes to a flicker.
There were mammoth crowds there. They did everything that they could possibly do to intimidate the Blue Jays, and they came back and won the last 3 of that series. And I think that is when the people around all of the major league cities looked at this club and said, hey, these guys are for real. They're not going to fold up their tent and go away.
Toronto needed 1 victory to clinch the East Division title when the Blue Jays headed home for the final weekend of the season. The series brought more than 47,000 to Exhibition Stadium, the largest crowd ever, while the still contentious Yankees brought what they hoped would be the right stuff to sweep all 3 games and clinch at least a tie for the title. In the opener, the Blue Jays quickly erased any lingering doubts about their staying power. They scored 2 runs to come from behind, and it seemed all the momentum had shifted Toronto's way. In the 8th inning, Cliff Johnson untied the score as he delivered a single that brought down the house and gave the Blue Jays a 1-run lead. The division championship was now just a breath away. Tom Henke brought the Blue Jays within 1 out of wrapping up the title when the rain came down and Butch Weiniger came to the plate. For Blue Jays fans, the expectation of victory was hanging in the air.
It's hit deep to right field. It's out of here. And Butch Weiniger has tied it up with 2 out.
When Weiniger hit that home run, I mean, I was so emotionally high that I was crying out there in right field. And then when he hit the home run, it's like I fell off a building, boom.
I was with Gillick. We were sitting in box 502. That ball went out, the rain was coming down, and I don't think anybody's eyes moved. I mean, I don't think anybody wanted to believe what they saw. The world stopped. I mean, no one moved, no one said anything. There wasn't even any profanity used. I mean, what you would like to do. There was no emotion thrown, like grabbing something and throwing it or anything like that. It was just a matter of stillness.
But with the expectations restored next day, the Blue Jays met their foes again. The Yankees were pumped up for the occasion, but Toronto quickly dashed New York hopes. By the end of the 4th inning, the Blue Jays led 5-1, courtesy of 3 home runs and another stunning performance by Doyle Alexander, who was about to complete a mission that began almost a decade earlier.
9 years the Blue Jay fans have waited for this. There's a drive to George Bell. He's got to come in. He's there. He's got it. The Blue Jays have won it. The Jays have won it. They've won the Eastern Division Championship. How about those Toronto Blue Jays? They've done it.
There was a general euphoria that I don't know if we'll ever see again. And the reason why I won't see it again, because it can only happen the first time once. And I don't know if we will ever see it again. I mean, there was a feeling. It's just sort of like opening day in 1977. But if you compared opening day to 1977, April the 7th, 77, to winning last year is tenfold better. Winning last year was so much more important because that was the culmination. That was what we'd all been striving for.
The Blue Jays' triumph was especially gratifying for the team's founding fathers who had shared all 10 years together.
When we did win it last year, I mean, it was almost like the 4 of us just sort of magnetized together, the Org and Clancy and Witt and myself. It was just like they played together in the minors and naturally in the big leagues. So I would say that this to them is as exciting as it is to me or anybody else that's been here since day one.
From there, it was on to the playoffs. The Blue Jays of Toronto against the Royal Blue of Kansas City, a matchup that promised tough pitching and feisty offense. After Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney officially opened the series, Dave Stieb officially flattened Kansas City for 8 innings as the Blue Jays led 6-0 in Game 1. Stieb gave way to Tom Hinkie in the 9th. Despite allowing a run, the Terminator terminated the Royals, and the Blue Jays had a 6-1 win in the best-of-7 series. Bobby Cox found a new hero in Game 2 when Al Oliver drove in the game winner to finish off a 10-inning madcap affair in which Toronto went ahead 2-0 before the series shifted to Kansas City. There, George Brett smacked 2 homers as Kansas City won Game 3. But Al Oliver came back to haunt the Royals in Game 4 when he capped off a 3-run rally in the 9th with a pinch hit double that put Toronto 1 victory away from the pennant. But Danny Jackson held up a Blue Jay celebration when he shut out Toronto in Game 5. And before Bobby Cox knew what happened, the Royals had evened the series back in Toronto with a win in Game 6, pushing the series to the limit. The Royals rode on to victory in the final game, taking home the pennant and eventually a World Series title as well. A stunning turn of events for the Blue Jays and for Bobby Cox, who had brought his team to the threshold and was rewarded by being named Major League Manager of the Year by the Sporting News. But at season's end, Bobby suddenly decided to accept an offer in Atlanta's front office.
I had no idea I'd ever leave there. I was always on a 1-year contract, which I felt very comfortable with. I always thought I'd be there for at least 10 years, and I love the city, I love the organization, period. I still think it's the best organization in baseball.
As successor, Jimmy Williams gave up his third base coach's box to accept the not-so-modest proposal, and in stepping into the spot, assumed characteristic modesty.
I've always looked at it this way, you ask a player who makes out the lineup, they'll say when the manager does. I say, no, he doesn't. You guys do, by what you do on the field.
Though the Blue Jays haven't always succeeded on the field, their fans have remained loyal throughout. In fact, the team has drawn over 1 million every year but one, and more than 2 million since 1984. From hard times to high times, Toronto fans have kept up their appetite for Blue Jays baseball and stuck by their team, win or lose.
I drive 1,000,000 miles to be with you tonight. So if you're feeling low, turn up your radio. The words we use are strong. They make reality. But now the music's on. Well, baby, dance with me. Yeah. Everybody have fun tonight. Across the nation, around the world. Everybody have fun tonight. A celebration, so spread the word.
Despite the true blue support, the Jays were oh so blue in 1986 when they faltered early and couldn't catch up. Amid the disappointment, though, Toronto found bright hope in reliever Mark Eichhorn, who won a job in spring training and then earned highest marks on his freshman report card. 14 wins, 10 saves, and an ERA well below 2. While Eichhorn may have been the latest sensation in Toronto, the Blue Jays outfield trio was still the greatest, and no doubt bound for even more glory at the ripe young age of 26. With this threesome, the Blue Jays are the envy of every outfield in the majors. George Bell is reason number 1. In his third full season, the Killer Bee stung American League pitchers for a .309 average, 31 homers, and 108 RBIs. Golden numbers for the Dominican powerhouse, whose flair at the plate appears to be a natural resource.
Bell is a pure hitter, like Bill Sharman's a pure free throw shooter when he played, or Larry Bird is a pure basketball player, or Gretzky, the great hockey player, the great one. George Bell has a bat where the ball just flies off, and you think you fool him one time, and the next thing he hits the pitch, 400 feet.
Measure for measure, George is an asset all around, but his power doesn't tell the whole story.
One good thing I can say about George is that his aggressiveness have rubbed off on a lot of guys. I mean, when he loses, he don't want to talk. He's one of the worst guys to be around in the world. And when he wins, sometimes he's the worst guy to be around, But you have to know George Bell in order to appreciate that, because all he wanted to do is win. I know him personally, and I think a lot of guys on the team know him, and they know him as an aggressive, hard-nosed, winning ball player, and he's a guy I would definitely want to have on my ball club for years to come.
A lot of people think I'm mean because they can look my face and they see there's a mean guy. I'm not. I'm a nice guy, but when I'm playing, it's different. So they think because I'm mean in the field, I'm mean out, everywhere I go. It's different because after the game is over, I'm a total different person.
Jesse Barfield's exploits in 1986 also added up to total trouble for opposing pitchers. In setting a Toronto record, Jesse smacked a league-leading 40 home runs and tied with George Bell in posting 108 RBIs. A slugger of noble proportion, Jesse is equally redoubtable in the field. He led the league in assists for the second straight season, thanks to an arm that's already becoming legendary.
They can talk about the Evans, they can talk about the Dave Parkers all you want, but I've been here, I've seen it. My head is still spinning from some of the plays I've seen. In fact, a couple nights ago, I told the guy, go to second base. I'm screaming second base. I know he can't throw the guy out the plate. He throws it to the plate, and the guy is out, and I go, I told you to plate, I told you. So it's kind of a bandwagon with Jesse. You don't know what to tell him because he's got such a great ability. I don't tell him anything anymore.
When it comes to talk of Lloyd's glove, opposing hitters can only moan and groan at his far-reaching talents. And at the plate, Mosby has matured into a hitter of much respect. With a knack for both power and speed, he hit 21 homers and stole 32 bases in 1986. Proof enough that he has finally shaken his early career hitting woes. All told, Toronto's outfield is a princely trio for whom familiarity breeds respect.
I think if I ever got to the situation where I didn't like Bell or Barfield or somebody on the club that I had to be around for 6 months, I think that I would either ask to be traded or sooner or later I have to give up the ball game. Because part of, at least 90% of the game for me is fun. And sure, the money is there and the fame or whatever. But I think, first of all, you got to have some fun in this game, and those guys are second to none.
In Toronto, the highest praise is reserved for Pat Gillick, whose patience and foresight have helped build a contending ball club. A seemingly impossible mission when the Blue Jays opened their first chapter 10 years ago.
It takes a while to build an organization, and this organization announced on day one what their game plan was. They never wavered from that game plan. Therefore, there was always a light at the end of the tunnel. It's all part and parcel of a beautiful mosaic, I suppose, 10 years of Blue Jays baseball.